2015 Lin-Wood Veterans Day Assembly. I would like to introduce our ushers today, Michael Liskey and Dakota Morris, ROTC members. I would like to introduce Mrs. Paula King, who will start with the Parade of Veterans.
Good morning, everyone. Here comes our Parade of Veterans. Mr. Ted Bartlett, United States Marine Corps, 4th Marine Division from 1942 to 1945, escorted by Jasmine Hand. Mr. Jones Avery, Army from 1969 to 1972, escorted by Meredith Saborn, Alexis Deaton, Jordan Saborn, Zach Deaton, and Jillington Gardner. Mr. Ernest Holtzman Jr., Army 82nd Airborne from 1968 to 1971, escorted by Anna and Abby Harvey and Maisie Anderson. Mr. Michael Dennis, Army from 1978 to 1980, escorted by Kiara Blake. Mr. Ron Goodhue, Army from 1983 to 1986, escorted by Viviana Goodhue. Patrick Duncan is carrying a picture of his great-grandfather, and he is also walking in memory of his other great-grandfather. First picture is Paul Everett Johnson, active service in Army Air Corps from 1943 to 1946, as a second lieutenant navigator and radar observer bombardment. He served in 1942 during World War II and retired from active duty as a captain in the United States Army on January 31st, 1953. He retired as a civilian for the U.S. Defense Department. David Bradley served in the Army as the 1st Cavalry from 1962 to 1982, escorted by Aurora Bicycle. Mr. Richard Murray served in the Marine Corps from 1969 to 1971, escorted by Brody Murray. Mr. Joe Evans, Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, served in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969, 1st Armored Amphibian Company, 11th Marine Regiment, 1st Marine Division, escorted by Dylan Russell. Mr. Ken Mack served in the Marine Corps from 1995 to 1999, escorted by Sienna and McKenna Mack. Doc Maynard served in the Army from 1979 to 1982, escorted by Aaliyah Tracy and Haley Maynard. Tech Sergeant, United States Air Force and Air National Guard, 2001 to the present, escorted by Michael and Lizzie Drew. Carter Krill is escorting his grandparents, Mr. Tony Ehrman, who served in the Air Force from 1962 to 1968, and Mr. Phil Krill, Air National Guard, 1962 to 1968. Served in the Army, 1st Battle Group, 16th Infantry Division from 1959 to 1962, escorted by Cameron and Liam Manning. Mr. James Bijou served in the Army from 1964 to 1967, escorted by Evan Bijou. Served in the Navy from 1986 to 1992, Army National Guard 1992 to the present, escorted by Sarah Jolly. Charles Harrington served in the Army 4th Regimental Combat Team from 1956 to 1960, escorted by Andrew Harrington. served as an Army Ranger from 1963 to 1967, escorted by Kai Good. Mr. Roger Harrington served in the Army 54th Engineers from 1959 to 1962, escorted by Brandon Harrington. Is walking in honor in memory of Mr. Ken Osgood, who served in the Navy, Coast Guard, and Auxiliary for 25 years. As a member of the amphibians from 1944 to 1950, he was in the Navy. And his photo is being carried by his wife, Joanne Osgood, and she is being escorted by Skylar LeBeth. Mr. Robert McAfee served in the Coast Guard from 1983 to 1991, escorted by Paige McAfee. Served in the Army from 1948 to 1954, escorted by Gavin Tebow. Mr. Patrick Walsh served in the Air Force as a nuclear weapons specialist from 1975 to 1998, escorted by Colt Southern. Mike Doloff served in the Army, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th Infantry Divisions from 1978 to 1998, escorted by Caitlin Untoon. Mr. Daniel Tennyson served in the Army from 1964 to 1967, from 577th Engineer Battalion in Vietnam in 1966 and 1967, escorted by Marjorie Tennyson. Jr. served in the Air Force from 1985 to 1989, walking with his children Bree, Maddie, and Jack. And he also was walking for his brother Mark Chase, who served in the Coast Guard, and in loving memory of Donald O'Rourke, Air Force, and Raymond O'Rourke, Army, and Lester Bradley, Marine. And is escorted by Daytona Beach. Roy Kimball served in the United States Army as a dental assistant from 1962 to 1967, escorted by Keegan Webster LaRue and Kirsten Fallman. Jasmine Hand is walking with a photo of Brendan Ingalls, currently serving in the Army. He enlisted in 2013 and is still serving today. All our veterans have joined us, and let's get on with the program.
Medical Sergeant Bailey Harrington and Corporal Connor Coppin will do the presentation of the colors. They will also discuss the history of candle lighting and light the candle.
The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate the soldiers' way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. Please remain standing while Miss Abby Sawyer leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
We will now have a reading by Miss Sarah Ford. Please be seated.
Good morning. Today I will be reading an excerpt from a letter written by retired Colonel Jules Seltzer to his wife. He titled it, "Today Should Be Your Day Too," to acknowledge the sacrifice that military spouses make while their loved ones are serving our country. To my dearest military wife, today the country honors veterans who serve their country. I am proud of my service and will stand tall when I enter the room today. I believe the country should have a day to honor military wives. They are the backbone of every member of the armed forces. And they ensure that their husbands' uniforms are in proper order at all times. They pack and unpack entire households so many times during frequent moves within the United States and overseas as well. They travel alone with young children while husbands have already reported for duty. They endure long periods of lonely days and nights while husbands play soldier in the field. They grieve when husbands go into combat, more so when they are injured, and quietly and soberly endure the ultimate sacrifice should it occur. So when I am led into that room, you should feel a tremendous sense of pride for having been a superb, loving, supportive, modest, helpful, sacrificing military wife. I love you with all my heart, a most appreciative military husband. Although this was written with about military wives specifically, it should be noted that this applies to all military spouses. His thoughts and appreciation are echoed by all military personnel and veterans to honor the sacrifices made at home by their loved ones. Thank you.
And now the Sunshine Singers will sing on Veterans Day.
Make us proud.
like to introduce Mrs. Nancy Ingalls, and she will talk of a family member's perspective. Mrs. Ingalls.
Welcome. I'm sure that many, if not all of you, are wondering, why is Mrs. Ingalls giving a speech on Veterans Day? I didn't know she was a veteran. Well, I'll let you know a little secret. I'm not. But I was told that this year they were looking for a speaker that could give a different perspective, a family perspective. And Sarah, your letter was wonderful. Sort of leads in on this. And since my son is currently serving in the Army, and my husband is a Navy veteran, and they both are Lin-Wood graduates, I guess they thought of me. But I want to reassure all of you, especially our veterans and our military men and women, that it's not about them that I'm here. I'm here to continue Lincoln Woodstock's tradition. It's a wonderful tradition of honoring you, our veterans, and military servicemen and women for your service to our country. Now, I understand some of you may be a little hesitant to hear about hearing from a woman who's never served her country. You, in the past, have been used to having fellow veterans come up and speak to you. They are people who totally understand where you've come from. They've been through, the times you have been, the sacrifices you've made. They understand that. They understand how your service has totally affected your life. I can't begin to understand what you've gone through or what you're going through. But as a family member, I do understand there are struggles. So please know that I am very, very humbled by this opportunity to speak with you today. And I'll do my best to honor you and your service. Your families have witnessed what it takes for you to serve your country. And they admire you and want you to know that they're very proud to have you as part of their own personal family, their own personal heroes. And we're also proud to have you as part of the Lin-Wood family. They're proud of your bravery and the courage that it took you to serve your country. And I know, like that letter stated, that they appreciate your love and support so that they really could serve their country honorably. Military teamwork, there's nothing like it. And the Lincoln Woodstock community and Lin-Wood Public Schools make a great team too. They work together, like today, to find ways to improve the lives of our community. They look for teaching moments for our students. And since we have all of our students here as a captive audience, I believe that this is one of those moments. We can help our students understand you, our veterans, a little bit better, and your service and what it really should mean to them. You see, when a person today is asked, who's your hero? Many times they'll say a professional athlete's name. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have our own, heroes in that realm. But what I wanted to do is use this opportunity to explain the difference of those day-to-day heroes and real heroes, such as you, our veterans and military men and women. When an athlete is asked to join a professional team, they jump at the chance to be part of a great team. And then once they're part of the team, they want some of that glory. Well, then we have people like you. And you were asked to join a great team too, the American team. And you said yes. But there's a difference. When you said yes, you raised your hand and you made a promise to your country. And you promised to serve your country, to protect and defend your country against foreign and domestic enemies. Now, in that one small moment, and I don't think many of you veterans think it's a big deal, but in that one small moment, you were willing to give up your life for your country. Lin-Wood students, this is a sign of a real hero. I don't know of any professional athlete that would give up their life for their game, yet these men and women offer their life for you and your freedom. Did you know that Lin-Wood has graduates that earn the Purple Heart. One even earned 3 Purple Hearts. But what do these proud Americans do? They quietly step back into our community, not looking for any glory. That is a real hero. Now, I know you veterans, I know what you're thinking, and I can't read minds either. When a military person hears that 4-letter word, hero, they shrug it off and they tell you reasons why they're not one of them. Well, sorry to tell you this, but humility is yet another sign of a real hero. So, we have either way, sorry. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about my own personal heroes in my family and how they've helped me to understand this military dedication that all of you have, including your families. They're my role models. They taught me how to serve others. And just like you veterans, you have the same effect on your family and this community. It all started with my dad, doesn't it always? He's a World War II veteran. He served for 23 years in the U.S. Navy. He ended up as a lieutenant commander. 19 years were in the reserves, and 4 of those were active, and those were all during World War II. He was a young sailor at that time, and he told me it took him a long time to earn those sea legs because he was on a small minesweeper in the Pacific Ocean. And the large waves of the Pacific Ocean took a little bit of doing, he said. Now his brother, my Uncle Bob, crazy Uncle Bob, we all had a crazy uncle, right? Mine was Uncle Bob. He served during World War II. He was in the Army. So decades to follow, the Army-Navy football games, yes, they were rather interesting in our family. But he was served very honorably, and I found out near the end of his life that maybe a little bit of the craziness was because he also served on the secret side of the military for years. So he had to give up close relationships to his family, and I think it did affect him, but he served honorably. My father-in-law, John B. Ingalls, served during the Korean War, the Forgotten War. He was in the Army for 3 years. He was an infantryman. He earned the Combat Infantry Badge, and one of his jobs was to find those coordinates for the enemy so his unit knew where to aim. Stateside, he had that job where he had to go to the lost ones' homes and give a flag and explain to the family how they'd lost a loved one. That's the job in the military that changed his life forever. Now, during the Vietnam War, I did live during that, so kids, yes, I am that old. I watched it on TV. There were some horrific battles, but the one thing I remember the most was sitting there with my entire family and waiting and praying that my brother's draft numbers wouldn't come up. See, back then, you could be told you were going to serve. Both my brothers were old enough. My brother Bill wanted to serve, but his eyesight was too poor. He wasn't eligible. My oldest brother, a very quiet young man, you couldn't picture in a uniform carrying a gun, but he decided he'd join the Army Reserves. He served his country proudly for 6 years, thinking, well, if they do need me, I'll go, but I need time to prepare. Luckily, he didn't have to serve. But he never for one moment thought of being a draft dodger and going to Canada, not once. These are honorable men. Now, you would think I'd had enough of servicemen, but no, I had to go and marry one. My husband, Jeff, is a Lin-Wood graduate. He served 20 years active duty in the U.S. Navy, and he ended his career as a Master Chief, Master Diver. He served during the Desert Shield, Desert Storm era. It was a very quick and successful part of the war, but he really earned that veteran status like 5 years earlier in 1985. There was a terrorist incident when he lost his youngest member of his team, Bobby Steedham. In fact, his UCT-1 brothers and himself, he earned a POW medal last spring, 30 years after the fact, for their bravery during this terrorist hijacking. So yes, I do understand that vets live with pain. My nephew served, Jonathan Kidwell served during the Afghanistan War. He has served 10 years in the U.S. Air Force very proudly, and he is now in the Army, the Air Force Reserves. He started his career some of you Lin-Wood students, as a junior police officer, in that program, and a junior firefighter. So he wanted to serve from the very beginning. Now we come to my son, Brendan. It's probably the hardest to speak about, but he was a 2012 graduate from Lin-Wood. He serves in the U.S. Army. He has served just under 2.5 years. He's in the infantry like his grandfather. He's a sniper. He's a corporal right now, but in 2 days he starts leadership course to become a sergeant. 3 months ago, his commander put him in charge of a sniper section. So yes, he was born to do this too. So as you can see, every part of my life has been influenced by great people like you. And I know you veterans have greatly influenced your family members and community members similarly. Family members, I realize that you have similar stories and that you're extremely proud of your personal heroes. But families, I want to take this moment to thank you for being there for your veterans. Your service is not forgotten. So I'd like to end with a challenge in recognition to our veterans and servicemen and women who've served our country so honorably. Families, community members, and Lin-Wood students, I challenge you to serve something bigger than yourself. Tomorrow's a day off for you, students, and go to a service, go to a parade, or if you see a military person at any time, go up and thank them for their service. Or ask your family member to tell a story about their service. Family history is important. Or serve an American citizen, just a regular civilian, a senior citizen, a mother in health that is in need of help. Donate your time to charity. Give back. This is serving your country. It's making it a better place to live, just as our veterans, you people here, did when you served your country. Follow their lead. And veterans, this may be your day off and a day about you, but you don't get off that easily. I'm going to challenge you as well. Reach out to a fellow veteran. There are so many in need in our little community that could use someone to talk to that knows what they've been through. Your family needs you to guide them, to share stories, the past, and to encourage them. So in closing, never forget your families, your friends, and your community. I want to thank each and every one of you veterans and servicemen and women of the Air Force, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the National Guard, and the Reserves. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being our real-life heroes and serving your country with such honor. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Mrs. Ingalls. The members of the 5th grade class would like to offer a presentation.
Good morning. We are glad to be here today to share our thoughts about veterans and their families. Veterans are people who serve our great nation. They make sacrifices for our freedoms. Veterans are important because when they go out to war, they know they might not return home. Veterans are not just ordinary people. They're family members like my dad, stepmom, and cousin. A veteran is a person who makes sacrifices in their life to protect our freedom. We should also give thanks to all the people who are related to veterans because their family members were gone for months, maybe years. It is important to thank the family members too because they are making sacrifices also. It is important to say thank you to veterans because they are putting the lives of others ahead of their own. We should all thank veterans because they are willing to risk their lives to serve our country. A veteran is someone who feels the need to protect our country's rights and freedoms. We should thank them because they decided to spend their lives sacrificing for others.
We made this banner in honor of all of you. We hope it will hang in the hallway to welcome you for the years to come. Thank you for all your service.
Middle school chorus will now sing Land of Our Dreams.
Rush, my darling,
read an excerpt from the American Legion. Most veterans, whether they experience a field training exercise or intense combat, have distinct memories of discomfort, poor living conditions, lack of sleep, unpleasant food, and separation from family. It goes hand in hand with military life, and it is why we hold veterans in such high esteem. But then there are those who face pain and death so others can be spared. Such was the case of two American veterans and their longtime friend when they bravely stopped the terrorist attack aboard a train bound for Paris this summer. Airman First Class Spencer Stone, Army Specialist Alex Scarlatos, and Anthony Sattler could have run from danger when a heavily armed gunman boarded the train. Instead, Specialist Scarlatos said, "Let's go," as the men ran toward a future that could have easily meant instant death or maiming for them, and all the other innocent people within range. Fortunately, this story is mostly remembered not for the horrific tragedy that nearly happened, but for the heroism that did. Even after enduring serious stab wounds that were inflicted as he disarmed the gunman, Airman Stone administered life-saving first aid to a passenger that was shot. The terrorist was carrying 270 rounds of ammunition, but because of these actions, these three young Americans, the death toll above the train was 0. President Obama praised the men as the very best of America. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter called the incident an amazing story right out of the movie. To most veterans, this is probably not surprising, while we take nothing away from the heroic actions of Spencer, Alex, and Anthony. America's military men and women risk life and limb every day so that we can be free. From Bunker Hill to Baghdad, there has always been a select group of Americans willing to fight and possibly die for a cause greater than their self-preservation. And while we set aside November 11th as a special day to honor and remember our veterans, we should continuously endeavor to serve our veterans as well as they have served their nation. Sometimes, all that is needed is a simple thank you, directed at the veteran or the family member for his or her sacrifice. So I conclude by saying, thank you.
The high school band will now play Stars and Stripes Forever. The high school chorus is going to sing the Battle of the Republic with instrumentals by Mrs. McGann, Mr. Undersea, Connor Miles, and Dan O'Connor. Forces, the Pride of America, will be sung by the high school chorus. Those who have served, please stand and be honored at the singing of your branch's tune. Members of the audience are encouraged to stand and honor friends and loved ones who served our country. This piece ends with our national anthem, and we ask you all to please stand at that tune.
The United States Army.
up in. We'll extinguish the candles and we'll have caps. I would like to introduce Mr. Robert Nelson, who will be closing our ceremony today.
We'd like to thank everyone for coming to our annual Veterans Day Assembly. We appreciate the commitment and the efforts of all of our veterans who are in attendance, as well as those who have died and are no longer with us. The freedoms that we have today are largely due to the sacrifices made by those who served in the military, who helped lay the foundation for future generations. We thank all of you from the bottom of our heart. We'll now have Mrs. King lead us in the Veterans Exit.
Will everyone please stand? I'm not going to announce your names individually, but please stand and thank our veterans for their service, thank our current service members for their service with a round of applause.